Good. Hello. Good evening. Good evening, all my students. Welcome to an online classroom again. Okay, today it is indeed the Chinese New Year. Okay, but I still have to deliver my lecture. Okay, because this is quite hard to fix. In fact, I make a class later, so even though the government has recently announced the Chinese New Year Day as a public holiday in this country, I still have to deliver my lecture. Okay, and as I have informed all of you beforehand, this lecture is recorded and will be made available for your viewing on YouTube. Okay, so you can just come to have a look at this lecture at your own convenience. Okay, so that it will not affect your life. Okay, that even though it is a public holiday, you don't need to view this lecture. Okay, on this public holiday. Again, I wish you on the special occasion of the Chinese New Year. I wish you all success, happiness, and all the best in your life. Okay, so again, welcome to this online classroom. We are going to continue this lecture from my lecture last time. Okay, last time in fact we delivered lecture only this afternoon. Okay, and we will continue the topics which have been left unfinished. Okay, so remember we talk about the obligations of the seller under the CISG. Okay, and I hope that you remember that CISG refers to the UN Convention on Contracts for International Sales of Goods. Okay, so a few hours ago we talked about the obligations of the seller. If you can remember well, okay, we have seen an overview of the obligations of the seller, okay, in the Article 30, and to bring you back, okay, to bring your memory back, we have seen that with respect to the obligations of the seller, Article 30 of the CISG addresses in three important trade principle obligations. The first is obligation to deliver the goods. The second one is the obligation to hand over any documents relating to the goods, and finally the obligation to transfer the property, i.e. the ownership in the goods. Okay, so and we have also seen that with respect to an obligation to deliver the goods, okay, there are the important issues on the nature of delivery and the time of delivery, and also the conformity of the goods. Okay, so from our last lecture, we have looked at in fact the conformity of the goods. Okay, remember with respect to the conformity of the goods, okay, we have looked at the nature of conformity, and we also have seen that the CISG also provides for the right of the seller to cure the lack of conformity, and CISG also talks about the duty of the buyer to give notice of the lack of conformity. Okay, so we are going to give you the elaboration upon this. Okay, again, when we talk about the nature of conformity of the goods, so we have seen that the goods must conform with the contract in the dimension of quantity, quality, description, and packaging. Okay, I think that we have a glimpse of this. Okay, and we are going to look at this, at greater detail. Okay, so now, okay, we should now begin with quantity. Remember, the quantity is one of the dimensions, okay, of conformity. In order for the goods to conform with the contract, okay, the goods must be delivered in the quantity which meets the contractual requirement. Okay, so the CISG talks about the quantity of the goods as well. Okay, in fact, I mean the possibility there are two possibilities. The first one is that the seller deliver the goods in a greater quantity than that required by the contract. Okay, then this is in fact the situation which is addressed by Article 52.2. Okay, and the second scenario it is the one in which the seller delivers a smaller quantity of goods than what is required by the contract. Okay, in fact, with respect to this scenario, the scenario involving the delivery of a smaller quantity, this is not indeed addressed by the CISG provisions. Okay, this in the case where the sellers delivers the goods in the quantity which is smaller than what is required by the contract, it is just the bridge. Okay, and it may be the normal bridge, or in some cases it may be a fundamental bridge or FB. Okay, so where the goods are delivered in the quantity which is smaller than that required by the contract. Okay, it may be the normal bridge or the fundamental bridge, which indeed gives rise to the other party's rights. Okay, to claim, let's say, the damages or the right to avoid a contract in the case of the fundamental breach. Okay, this means that in the case where the sellers deliver the goods in the quantity which is smaller than what is required by the contract, okay, it is a breach, and okay, that breach will give rise to remedies available to the buyer. We will see all remedies available to the buyer maybe in the next lecture. Okay, what I'm saying now is that okay, the CISG contains a special or specific provision addressing the situation where the seller delivers the goods in the quantity which is greater than what is required by the contract. But see, the CISG does not contain any specific provision addressing the situation where the seller delivers the goods in the quantity which is smaller than what is required by the contract. Okay, in the second scenario, we will have to resort to the concept regarding the breach and the provisions regarding remedies available to the buyer. Okay, now back to the situation or the scenario in which the seller delivers the goods in the quantity which is greater than what is required by the contract. Okay, in this case, Article 52.2. Okay, 52.2 of the CISG provides, okay, this Article 52.2, okay, makes special provision on this point. Okay, according to Article 52.2, if the seller delivers a quantity of goods greater than that provided for in the contract, then the buyer may take delivery or refuse to take delivery of the excess quantity. If the buyer takes delivery of all part of the excess quantity, he must pay for it at the contract rate. If you look at the remedies, if you look at the rights of the buyer in the event where the sellers deliver the goods in the quantity exceeding the contractual requirement, you can see that there are two options, okay, for the buyer. The first one is that the buyer may just take delivery of the whole. Okay, let's suppose that the contract requires the sellers to deliver 100 tons of iron, and the seller has delivered 110. Okay, in this case, that's mean that there is the excess by 10 tons. In this case, the buyer may take the 110 tons. The buyer may take the whole, or alternatively, the buyer may take delivery only of contractual quantity and refuse to take the excess quantity. So where the contract requires the seller to deliver 110 tons of iron, but the contract requires the seller to deliver 100 tons, but the seller delivers 110. In this case, the buyer may take delivery of only 100 as required by the contract and refuse to take the excess. The buyer may refuse to take the 10 ton, okay, which represent the excess quantity. Okay, so this seems to make sense. In fact, it makes full sense. Okay, but if we compare, what is provided in the Article 52.2 of the CISG with the provision, the 11th provision in Thai law, in fact, in section the 465 of the Civil and Commercial Code, we can see that the options available to the buyer in Thai law seems to be even greater than the options available by available by the CISG. Okay, if we look at section 465 of the Civil and Commercial Code of this country, of our country, Thailand, okay, we can see that section 465 says that in the sale of movable property, okay, we look at the situation number in the subparagraph 2, where the seller delivers the property more than he contracted for, the buyer may accept the property according to the contract and reject the rest. That means that the buyer may reject, the excess quantity, or he may reject the whole. The buyer may reject the whole thing. Okay, if the buyer accepts the whole of the property, so delivered, he must pay proportionate price. See? So we can see from the Civil and Commercial Code of Thailand in section 465 that in the event where the seller delivers the goods in the quantity larger than what is required by the contract, there are 3 options available to the buyer. The first option is to take delivery of the whole. Okay, so the contract requires the seller to deliver 100 tons. The seller deliver 110. The buyer may take the 110 tons, or alternatively, the buyer may take delivery only of the contractual quantity and refuse to take the excess quantity. The buyer may take only 100 tons as required by the contract, or the buyer may also under section 465, the buyer may even exercise the right even to refuse to take the whole thing. So the buyer may refuse 110. The buyer may may accept nothing at all. Okay, you can see that this is something different from the CISG. Right. You may wonder why. Okay, maybe it is felt in the the Thai law. It has been felt by the drafters of Thai law that where the contract requires the seller to deliver just 100 tons, but the seller delivers 110. That might cause sort of the burden on the part of the buyer, so that the law does not want to encourage this conduct. So the law tries to punish the seller by allowing the buyer to just refuse to take the whole thing. Okay, but this is something quite, in fact, even though even the rationale behind this one is is something to do with the punishment being imposed on the seller for the delivering the goods in a quantity larger than what is required by the contract. But the thing is that it provides the buyer with what? With an opportunity to just escape contractual obligation, by refusing to take the whole thing. Okay, so this might be felt as unfair. So I think that the options, the 2 options, or the only 2 options as available in the CISG seems to carry sort of greater the sensibility. Okay, so it makes in fact more sense. Okay, to just provide for 2 options rather than 3 options as seen in the section 465 in the Civils and Commercial Code of Thailand. Okay, so I leave this to you for the consideration as to whether or not the third option in Thai law. Okay, the third option, the option to refuse to take the whole thing. Okay, it makes sense in Thai law, and the question is whether or not If it does not make sense, or if it makes just too little sense, whether or not we have an avenue, okay, for removing this third option, okay, from the civil and commercial code, okay. Now, with respect to the quality, remember that if we are back to the conformity, okay, the sellers will have to deliver the goods, the which conform to which the contract in terms of quantity, quality, description, and packaging. In terms of quality, okay, now we are talking about the quality. This seems to be, a very, very important issue as well. Okay, in terms of quality, of course, the CISG also insists upon, the delivery of the goods in the quality as required by the contract. Of course, this is not surprising because this seems to be, along the line of the party autonomy principle or the freedom of contract principle. Okay, that everything should be, by reference to what the parties agree upon. Okay, so the quality should meet the contractual specifications by the parties. Okay, but in addition to the quality which corresponds with, the contractual requirements, the CISG also requires the quality which meets what is known as the merchantability requirements. Okay, merchantability requirement, we are going to talk about this in due course, okay, in fact, very, very shortly, okay. Before going to this issue, let me first also bring to your attention that, the CISG also provides for the situation, okay, of selling the goods, okay, by sample or by model, okay. If the buyer just hold, if the buyer, sorry, not the buyer, seller, if the seller holds out to the buyer, okay, holds out to the buyer that the goods will be sold by sample or by model. If the seller holds out that the goods will, correspond to, the sample or the model, then the sellers will have to deliver the goods, okay, which conform with the sample or the model. Okay, this is the requirement set forth in Article 35(2)(c) of the CISG. Okay, now, okay, we are coming to we are turning to discuss the packaging. Okay, packaging, it is also one part of conformity. If we go back to the previous slide, remember when we talk about the conformity of the goods. Remember back to this slide when we talk about the conformity of the goods. Okay, the goods must also conform with the packaging. Okay, packaging requirements. Okay, so with respect to the packaging requirements, okay, again, as with other dimensions, okay, packaging must be as required by the contract. Okay, so this is again based upon the party autonomy principle or the freedom of contract principle. Okay, but in addition to the packaging which must be in accordance with the contractual requirement, the CISG also say that in the case where the contract does not make specific provision on the point of packaging, then the goods must be contained or must be packaged in the manner which is usual for such goods. We will have to consider the manner in which the goods of the same kind are contained or are packed. Okay, then if there is the usual manner of the packaging, then the sellers must package the good in that manner. Where that manner is not found, then the CISG just say that the seller needs to just pack. The seller must adhere to the packaging in a manner which is adequate to preserve and protect the goods. Okay, this is what is said in, again in Article 35(2)(d). Okay, so this is not anything, complicated. So we will dedicate a large part, on discussion of what is known as the merchantability. Okay, remember, with respect to the quality of the goods, okay, apart from the obligation of the seller to make sure that the goods, okay, must have the quality which, okay, conform with the contract. The CISG also says that if the contract is silent, on the quality, then, okay, the seller has the obligation to deliver the goods which is of merchantable quality. Okay, what is that? In fact, the CISG does not use the word merchantable quality, but the concept which is contained in the CISG is widely known, okay, as the concept regarding merchantability. Okay, so I try to use this this expression. Okay, and I'm going to go to the 11th provision of the CISG, the provision which provides for the merchantability. Okay, so when we talk about merchantability quality, that this is the concept by which the goods must be fit for the purposes for which they are bought. In fact, the purposes for which the goods are bought may be split into two groups. The first one is ordinary purposes. Okay, the second one is particular purposes. Okay, with respect to the first one, ordinary purposes. Okay, this means that the goods must be of the quality. The goods must be of the quality. Okay, that must be of merchantable quality. In that they must be fit for the purposes for which those goods would ordinarily be used. So we have to consider, the normal purposes or ordinary purposes for which the goods of this kind are to be used. Let's say that if I buy a car, okay, a car is going to be used for driving from place to place. Okay, this is the ordinary use, ordinary purpose. Okay, so ordinary purposes are the purposes for which the goods of that kind would ordinarily be used. Okay, now coming to another type of purposes, particular purposes. That means that those purposes may not be, ordinary purposes for which the goods would be used, but the buyer intends to buy the goods for some specific or some particular purposes. Okay, even though that normally people do not use the goods for those purposes. Okay, let's say that if I want to buy a car, the normal purpose of the car is for driving from place to place. But if I want to buy a car with an intention to use a car in a mountainous areas, okay, so that the car must be able to be driven from place to place, and the car must be able to be driven in a mountainous areas as well. Okay, the mere fact that the car is able to be driven from place to place is not enough, because the specific or particular purpose of this purchase is for using the car in the mountainous area. Okay, so there are two types of purposes. Okay, so the fitness for ordinary purposes and fitness for particular purposes. Okay, this dichotomy of purposes is found in the Article 35(2) of the CISG. If you look at Article 35(2), okay, except where the parties have agreed otherwise, the goods do not conform with the contract unless they, A and B, okay, A are fit for the purposes for which goods of the same description would ordinarily be used. Okay, so this is what? This is known as the fitness for ordinary purposes. Okay, and B. Okay, the goods are fit for any particular purpose expressly or impliedly made known to the seller at the time of the conclusion of the contract. See, so this is what? This is just particular purposes. Okay, as I have given you as an example, if the buyer just buys the car if the buyer just buys this car for using it in a city which seems to be mountainous, then the car which is delivered by the seller to the buyer must be able to be used in the mountainous areas as well. Okay, the mere fact that the car can be used for driving from place to place, it is not enough. It is not sufficient in order for the seller to deliver the goods which conform with the contract. The seller must deliver the goods which is fit for driving in a mountainous area as well. Okay, so I mean there's the concept regarding merchantability in the sense that the goods must be fit for purposes is very well known, okay, in many jurisdictions. Okay, we are going to have a look at some examples, of fitness for ordinary purposes. Right. I have drawn 3 examples for you. If the goods, okay, if the goods did not have, this quality, i.e., if the goods did not turn out to be fit, even for ordinary purposes, then the seller would not be considered as, performing the obligations, the obligation of making delivery under the CISG. Okay. In one case, okay, the cloud case number 204. Okay. In this case, it was the sale of a refrigeration unit. Of course, I mean that we have to expect, a refrigeration unit to be able to do what? To be able to keep things cool. Okay. The thing is that when the buyer just bought this refrigeration unit, okay, it could not keep things cool. Okay, it just broke down soon after it was first into just operation. So when the unit failed to keep things cool, so we cannot say that the seller just delivered the goods which conformed with the contractual requirements. Okay, so in this case the seller was in breach of contract. Okay, in another case number 170. Right, this was concerned with the sale of wine. I think that many people drink wine, right? I mean, if you drink wine, you have to drink wine as the wine. Drink wine as wine. If the wine which was sold contained, too much water, the wine diluted, which in this case 9% water. You can imagine, when you have a bottle of wine diluted with too much water, in this case 9% of water, this means that that wine would not be fit for drinking as the wine would not be fit for drinking as the wine. Okay, normally when we buy the wine, the ordinary purpose of buying is to drink it as the wine. Okay, when the wine contains 9% water, when the wine was diluted with 9% water like this, you can imagine when you taste this wine, it would be giving a very very bad taste. Okay, so that it was here that in this case the wine which was delivered by the seller was not fit for ordinary purposes, so that the seller committed a breach of contract by delivering the wine which was diluted with 9% water. Right, now the last case which I want to give you as an example in this one, the sale of a dust ventilator. Of course, as the name suggests, dust ventilator, a dust ventilator should be able to do what? Should be able to remove dust. In this case, after the contract was made, the ventilator, the dust ventilator, rather than, removing dust, it just diffused dust. So it failed to perform, the function, okay, as expected of this kind of product, okay, so that a dust ventilator would have to be used, okay, for removing dust. But it couldn't do this, so that, the dust ventilator in this case did not have, the quality, the which conformed with the contract. It could not be used for its ordinary purposes of removing dust, so that the seller just committed the breach of contract in delivering the ventilator, the dust ventilator, which was not able to remove dust like this. Now, right, maybe I would like to draw to your attention also one important case, okay, under which the court seemed to address the remark on the fitness for ordinary purposes, okay. In one case, case number 123, the cloud case number 123, okay. In this case, it was concerned with the sales of what? It was concerned with the sales of the plants. Okay, the thing is that the plants which were sold, the plants which were sold did not prosper in the local climate. And the question which arose is whether or not the goods in this case conformed with the contractual requirements. Okay, so in this case the court make a mention. Okay, in fact the court just explained a very important concept regarding the fitness for ordinary purposes. The court remarked, the court addressed the remark on this point that when the CISG talks about the fitness for ordinary purposes, it is not anything so high or so low in terms of quality. Okay, fitness for ordinary purposes means just average quality, marketable quality, or reasonable quality, not anything too high, not anything too low. It's just something average. Right. So back to the facts of this case, the sale of plants. Okay, when on the facts the plants did not just prosper. Okay, could we say that these plants, the goods, were not fit for the ordinary purposes? Well, normally these plants could just prosper in normal climate, but the thing is that these plants which were delivered by the seller to the buyer could well prosper elsewhere, but it did not prosper in the local climate of the buyer only. In this case, the buyer did not make known to the seller about the local climate, and the buyer did not just require the seller to deliver the plants which could be fit for the local climate. So when these plants, when this plant could just prosper in normal climates, the conclusion may be drawn that these plants were indeed fit for their ordinary purposes, i.e., the purposes of using these plants as plants, which would prosper in normal climates. So that in this case, the buyer could not claim that the seller just was in breach of contract by delivering plants, which did not conform with the contract. It was found that the plants delivered by the seller perfectly conform with the contractual requirements. All right. Now there is on the point of the fitness for ordinary purpose or even fitness for the particular purposes, okay, we have a very, very interesting question here. Let's suppose that we have two countries, country A, okay, and country B. Country A is the export country, and country B, it is the import country. In this case, the goods are sold. Okay, the goods are sold from from country A. Okay, and the goods will have to be delivered to country B. The buyer is in country B. The seller is in country A. Okay. In this case, let's suppose that in country B, there exists sort of extraordinarily stringent standards for the goods. The government of country B just imposes a very, very stringent standard so that it is very hard for the goods elsewhere to be allowed to enter country B because the goods, okay, elsewhere will normally not conform with the extraordinarily stringent standards imposed by country B. Okay, so does the fact that the goods which are delivered from the sellers from country A, okay, cannot enter country B because they do not have the extraordinarily stringent standards as required by country B, result in these goods being being the non-conforming goods. The fact that country B has extraordinarily stringent standards, does it just result in the goods from country A being regarded as not conforming with the contract? Okay, in this case, we have a very, very important case, okay, known as the muscle case. Muscle case, okay, the muscle which contain cadmium concentration. In this case, the interesting thing is that this case was brought before three courts: the Court of First Instance, the Appellate Court, and the German Supreme Court. Okay, the litigation, of course, was made in Germany. Okay, and that this case was considered by three courts. Okay, from the Court of First Instance up to the German Supreme Court, and these three courts reach the unanimous opinion. Okay, so I'm going to just bring out the facts for you. Okay, and then we are coming to the point which we have raised at the beginning. Okay, in this case again, it was the sales of the New Zealand mussels. Okay, the New Zealand mussels from a Swiss company. The seller was a Swiss company to a German company in Germany, of course. Okay, so the seller in Switzerland and the buyer in Germany. Okay, the thing is that in Germany at that time, the law seemed to be very, very strict. Indeed, extraordinarily strict. Okay, that in Germany, the law said that mussels could contain cadmium, of course. Cadmium, the concentration not in excess of 0.5 milligrams per kilo. If the mussels contain cadmium concentration in a greater amount than this, the 0.5 milligrams per kilogram, then the goods could not get in Germany, because the goods fail to conform with the health standard. Okay, the thing is that in other countries, the standards of mussels, the standards of food, okay, they were not so high as what we see in Germany. Okay, in this case, okay, mussels which contain the cadmium concentration seem to be fine. even though the cadmium concentration exceeded 0.5 milligram per kilogram, these goods with this level of cadmium concentration seem to be found elsewhere, but not in Germany. In Germany, okay, this figure seems to be set at this, okay. This figure seems to be set, okay, in a very, very strict manner, right? In fact, if we ask question whether or not the whether or not the muscles with the cadmium concentration in the amount larger than 0.5 milligrams per kilogram would be safe, the answer is yes. Muscles with cadmium concentration higher than this figure as imposed by the German government seem to be safe as well. But the thing is that in Germany, okay, the government seem to impose a very, very strict standard, sort of externally strict standard. Okay, the question which we have to ask is this. Okay, the fact that when the seller delivered muscles from the Switzerland to Germany, and these muscles could not be allowed to enter Germany because the cadmium concentration exceeded this limit. Okay, would this fact render these goods unfit for their ordinary purposes? Okay, so in this case, the court of first instance answered this question in the negative. This means that according to the court. According to the court of first instance in Germany, okay, even though the seller delivered muscles with cadmium concentration in the amount larger than this figure, okay, did not render these goods to be non-conforming goods. Okay, why? What's the reason? Because it was felt by the court that even though the cadmium concentration exceeded this limit, even though the cadmium concentration exceeded the statutory limit as imposed by the German government, okay, the muscles were still fit for eating. They were still fit for eating. Okay, so this is the decision by the court of first instance. Okay, so in this case, when the buyer lost this case, the buyer would have to pay. The buyer tried to argue that the goods were not in conformity with the contract because of the cadmium concentration which was higher than the statutory limit. But the court of first instance of Germany said that these goods seem to be okay. Okay, they were fit for the purpose of they were fit for their ordinary purpose. Normally, of course, muscles will be used for what? What are ordinary purposes of muscle here? Of course, in this case, muscles would have to be consumed. Muscles would have to be eaten. Of course, it would be used for eating. When it turned out to be fit for eating, that means that the muscles, the goods in this case, just conformed with the contract. Okay, so the buyer would have to pay. The buyer, who was the defendant in this case, therefore appealed to the appellate court. The appellate court just confirmed the findings and the decisions of the court of the first instance. Okay, the appellate court was of the opinion that that in this case, right, when the seller delivered the muscles which could not be allowed to enter Germany because of the cadmium concentration exceeding the limit set by German law, this fact did not constitute any breach because the goods, the muscle here, Mussels, in this case, mussels as delivered by the seller to the buyer were fit for eating. They were still fit for eating, so that they conformed with the contractual requirement. They conform with the contractual requirement, so that there was no breach here, no breach, no normal breach, and no fundamental breach either, remember we have seen, what is meant by a fundamental breach, and we will see that again later. We have seen, the meaning in my previous lecture. If you go back to my previous lecture, you will, see, the three criteria of a fundamental breach. So the thing is that in this case, the appellate court just, confirm the decisions of the lower court, i.e. confirming that, the goods, mussels in this case, were fine, mussels just conform with the contractual requirements, because they were still fit for eating, When the buyer appealed to the German Supreme Court, the Supreme Court did not depart from, the decisions of the two lower courts. The Supreme Court confirmed the decisions of the two lower courts, i.e. that these mussels were, these mussels were conforming because when they were still fit for eating, so that there was no lack of conformity because when the mussels were still eatable, according to, the German Supreme Court. You can see that the three courts say the same thing. So our conclusion is this, The mere fact that, if we go back to, there's a picture here, The mere fact that the goods which are delivered from the seller from country A, cannot pass very, stringent standards imposed by country B, that does not necessarily mean that those goods did not conform with contract, The goods can be considered as conforming with the contract, because they are fit for their ordinary purposes, so that, these extraordinarily stringent standards as lifted or as imposed by country B, the importing country, may not be counted, They may not turn the goods into the non-conforming goods, If the goods are regarded as not conforming with the contract, by reason that, the goods cannot pass the stringent requirement imposed by the import country, there must be these facts. The first one is that, the same standard, the same, externally stringent standards also existed in the seller's jurisdiction, Or it must turn out to be that the seller knew or should have known of those, stringent standards because of some special circumstances, If the facts are this, if the facts are that the same standard also existed in the seller's country, or even though the same standards did not exist in the seller country, but the seller knew or should have known of those, externally stringent standards in, the import country, due to some special circumstances, then the seller will have the obligation to deliver the goods which meet, the standards, the externally stringent standard of the import country. Why so? Because, if the seller has this kind of knowledge, if the same standard existed in the seller's country, this means that the seller, the seller has the knowledge of these standards, Or even though in the seller's country there is no such stringent standard, but the seller knew of, the standards in the importing country, or should have known of those standards in the import country. So in that case, when the seller has such knowledge, I think that we can just conclude that they may be in this kind of situation some sort of implied term which require the seller to deliver the goods which generally conform with the requirements, okay, the food requirement, the food safety requirements in the import country, okay. So that is means something that been considered by the court in some cases, okay. In one case, cloud case number 202, we can see that, okay, even though the standards, the extraordinarily stringent standard did not exist in the seller's country, okay, but there existed some special circumstances which put the seller, okay, which there were some special circumstances by which the seller knew about the import country standards, right? I mean maybe the seller had previous dealings with the buyer in the buyer's country, okay, or the seller in one case has previously advertised and sold the goods in the buyer's country, so that the seller seemed to be accustomed to extraordinarily stringent standards in the buyer's country. So in that case, the seller would have the obligation to deliver the goods which conformed with the standards as imposed by the law of the import country. Back to case number 202. In this case, it was the sales of what? It was the sales of cheese. Okay, it was sales of cheese. And in the import country, okay, the law in the import country required cheese products to indicate compositions on the packaging. Okay, on the product there must be the packaging, maybe the label, okay, telling about the compositions of the food. Right. So the thing is that cheese which was delivered by the seller to the buyer's country did not have this kind of packaging label containing indicating the composition of cheese, so that when it did not have the indication of the compositions on its packaging, the goods were rejected, okay, it could not be allowed to get in, okay. So that in this case, okay, the question arose as to whether or not the seller just deliver the goods, cheese of course, okay, which failed to conform with the contract. In this case, it was held that the seller had previous dealings with the buyer, indeed for several months, so that the seller was aware very well of the requirements, the legal requirements in the buyer's country, okay. So in this case, the seller would have to make sure that the goods would have sort of the indication of composition on their packaging. If the goods, okay, did not have this kind of indication on the packaging, the seller could not be said as delivering the goods which conform with the contract, okay. So in this case, the seller was in breach, okay, because the goods that did not conform with the contract, right? So this is the example of the presence of some special circumstances, okay, by which the seller knew or should have known of the stringent requirements in the buyer's country, okay. Now we are going to look at the examples of cases which deal with the fitness for particular purposes. Cases which deal with fitness for particular purposes. Okay, in this case, okay, it was the sales of machinery. Okay, but the machinery was intended to be purchased for mass producing packaging for cassette. Okay, cassette packaging machine. And when the buyer bought this product, the buyer intended to use this product for what? To use this product for mass producing, the cassette packaging. And it was intended that this machinery would be able to produce the packaging, the packaging for cassettes rapidly and reliably. That it would have to, be working with rapidity. So it turned out to be that the machinery could not be used with this reasonable rapidity. It could not be used for mass producing the cassette packaging rapidly and reliably. So that we can see that this product was intended to be purchased for this particular purpose, i.e. for the purpose of mass producing, cassette packaging. Right. Mass producing cassette packaging at reasonable speed. When it turned out to be that this product could not produce cassette packaging at this speed, that means that the product could not be considered as being fit for this particular purpose, right? So in this case, the seller was therefore in breach. Okay. Now look at another case, which is a very, very important case as well. Okay. It was concerned with the sales of skincare product. You may just put the lotion, to keep your skin very smooth. The skincare products. Okay. Skincare products would have to be used for what? To keep skin, to just take care of skin or keep your skin healthy. Okay. The thing is that the buyer needs to make sure that the buyer in this case the buyer purchased these products for resale. Of course, for selling to whom? To customers. To customers, right? To the public. Of course, the buyer would have to put this product on shelves, right? And in this case, the skincare products would have to maintain, vitamin A throughout their shelf life. That means that when skincare products were put on shelves, the products would have to maintain, the vitamin A, throughout their shelf life. On the facts, right? It turned out to be that these products could not maintain, the intended level of vitamin A throughout the shelf life, right? So that in this case it was found that the goods, the skincare products, they were not fit for their particular purposes, because the buyer made clear that they wanted to buy these products for selling to the consumers, right? And they wanted to just place these products on shelf for many months, so that when they wanted the skincare products to maintain the intended level of vitamin A throughout the shelf life, so that when the products could not maintain vitamin A, throughout the shelf life, so the products were not fit for particular purposes as made known to the seller. Now, right, there are some exceptions to fitness for particular purposes requirement. And in Article 35(2)(b), in Article 35(2)(b) of the CISG, of course, if you can remember, 35(2)(b) addresses the requirement that the goods be fit for for any particular purposes made known to the seller, okay, at the time of the conclusion of the contract, okay. The exception is that where the circumstances show that the buyer did not rely, or it was unreasonable for him to rely on the seller's skills and judgment. In this case, okay, even though the goods are not fit for the particular purposes as made known to the sellers will not be in breach of the obligation, the obligation to deliver the goods which are fit for the particular purposes. The reason is just that, well, when the buyer did not even rely on the skill of the seller, and it was unreasonable for the buyer to rely on the judgment or the skill of the seller. In that case, the buyer should not trust that the seller would be able to deliver the goods which are fit for the particular purposes as made known to the seller. So that that if the goods turn out to be even unfit for the particular purposes, then the seller will not be considered as in breach. Okay. Fine. Okay. Now we have seen the requirement of fitness for purposes in the CISG. Of course, the requirements as to the fitness for purposes, or if you can remember well, the notion of merchantability. Okay. This is not anything new at all. Its presence, the presence of this notion, in the Article 35(2)A or 35(2)B of the CISG. Okay, this is not anything new at all, because this concept, the merchantability concept, is also known elsewhere. It is also known in the UK and also in America. Okay, so I think that we are going to have a break for some time. Okay, and then after the break, okay, we will just come back to look at the concept of merchantability as developed in England, okay, in English law and also in American law. Okay, that's it for now, and see you in a moment. Okay, in a moment. Let's now have a break for about 10 to 15 minutes. Okay, see you very soon.